For watching. This is James Robertson with WorkSpace Commercial Real Estate, and today we're going to look at the South Loop market. Before I get into the actual South Loop market, I want to talk about the search engine that we're using to power this search. CoStar is by far globally and nationally the most comprehensive and largest database of commercial listings. It will have roughly about 95% of everything that is listed digitally online. Now, I do have to say that when we look for space, there's basically two different components. There's a listed search, which is everything that someone wants you to find, which is most of the properties out there. I mean, who is advertising property that they don't want it to be found, right? So it's most likely going to be on here. There are some properties that are not listed, that are not for sale or not for lease, that are not on the network. And that's where we rely on our broker networks to find it. In this particular search, we're going to look in the South Loop in Houston. So I'm going to go ahead and break down this by submarket here. Okay, so we have the South Main market here. Let me go ahead and apply that. Now that's going to be along the 610 corridor here. I actually want to make it a little bit more narrow. We're not interested in the medical center. The rental prices are much, much higher there. I want to generally focus on the cluster of buildings that are directly on the 610 and 288 loop. So let me go ahead and do a different type of search here. I'm going to start here, focus on 610 to 288, and I want to pass all of the really high priced office product north of this location. Now we're going to look for office space here. That's roughly, I'm going to say 2,000 to 5,000 square feet of space. Okay, so for now, we're going to keep the rents open just because I want a comprehensive set of options. Let's double check to make sure that that's office. So we have 10 properties here or 26 spaces. So let's go ahead and get into it and see what's available. Now, for this particular client, we're looking about 12 months early. So some of these options will change. There's no doubt about that. But the availability will change, but the buildings here will stay the same, if that makes sense. Now, starting off looking at this, you can see the rents will range anywhere from the top at $30 a foot, and we have some here as low as $15 per square foot. That's a full gross lease. So pretty widespread as far as the rent rate goes. We've seen this area trend upwards quite a bit. Let me see if I can go back to the map here to talk about this. So when we look at the 610 South area, there have been buildings in this part of the market. Mainly this cluster here is what I want to focus on. We have 2646, you have 2616. These buildings here were just a few years ago. I'm talking about 2012. They were leasing for about $12 per square foot to $13.75 per square foot gross. And as you can see now, they're leasing at about $17.50 a foot. They've gone up quite a bit. By the same token, a few years ago, these buildings were selling for about $3-4 million. I'm talking about 5 years ago. Recently, these buildings have been going for as high as $10 to $11 million in recent sales. So actually here, this one went for $15 million. So even higher than what it was just a few years ago. So we've seen a really rapid increase in pricing. So let me tell you what that means as far as rental rates go here. We can expect a continued push of rental rates when you do deals in this part of the market in particular. I highly suggest if you get a good deal to do a long-term lease. Every client I put in here, I put on a 5 to 7 year deal, and right now they're all below market because we took advantage of the market earlier and we locked in a better rate basically. So let's go into each building and see what we can talk about. Okay. The first one is 4445 North Braeswood. For this particular client, it would fit the size requirement here. They may have to make some changes, but it's a standalone. That may be attractive. So we're talking about a $15 a foot plus triple net. Triple nets here would be about, let's see, does it have it here? It's going to be about $5 to $7. So we're talking about 18 to 20 bucks a foot all in. The next one is a more traditional Class C space here in this market, 7707 Fannin. So it was sold in 2002 for $6.6 million. This is a $21 a foot full service gross, so a little bit more expensive than the cluster buildings I mentioned earlier here, but it does have the availability in space. 8515 Fannin Street is the most expensive in the search so far, $30 a foot plus triple net, so you're talking anywhere from $35 to $38 all in. It's a medical facility, which makes sense because the medical users will pay more, and this is just an indication of where things are trending for the rest of the market that we identified. Everybody else is going to creep up to this level over the next few years, which is why it's important to lock in a good rate right now. Okay, so most people know these type of buildings here, the 2600 South Loop. I mean, you could pretty much talk about all these buildings in one breath because they're built the same, they're built at the same time, they're priced about the same, they're very competitive. So you're talking 1650 to 1850 plus plus electricity. Electricity, you add on another $1.50 to $2. So they're really going for about 1850 to 20 bucks a foot. Some of these guys have build out included, some don't. They're all under different management. Let's go ahead and see what else. Let's see if I can hit another one while we're on here. So some of these are owned by Boxer, some of these are owned by Oxley, some of these are owned by NAI. They kind of change hands quite a bit. Now the occupancy here, it stays quite volatile. People are moving in and out every year, so you always find availability here. But one thing that's consistent is the rates are constantly creeping up. So the name of the game here is starting early and finding a building that you can that has a floor plan that you want, that you have to do the least amount of improvements on. Every one of these in the portfolio, they're managed differently. They have different tolerances for improvements and build out. So 2626 here is mainly medical. There's a lot of medical users. They charge a little bit more for the space than others. They're a little bit less flexible, but you'd be surprised at the incentives you can get. Oxley Leasing, which is 2646 here, they've shown historically that they are a little bit more flexible on negotiations if you know how to talk to them. And you know, I like doing deals there. From all the buildings in this area, between Oxley and NAI are two really strong ones here. Now you have 2656. The rates here are a little bit cheaper. You know, now these are the listing rates here. This doesn't mean this is what you end up doing. Now, what I want to say to sum this up, when we look at this market, if you're looking for space here, it's important that you pull a report that has everything in the marketplace before you start looking. It's also critical that once you pull that you have someone to negotiate this for you. These guys are very seasoned. They know how to talk to tenants. Most of the people here don't use a broker, and it's sad because they spend a lot more money than they need to. I've seen people here that are charged build out. They are given no concessions, and they're basically told, hey, you know, take it or leave it. This is what we're offering. And they're able to do that because the tenant doesn't have any other data to compare it to. And all of these buildings are very used to being priced against each other, which is why they try to list their pricing at the same level. But where they negotiate is very, very different. So I hope this information was helpful to you. If you need more information, just give me a shout, and thank you for watching.